ICOs, as we said, have become amazingly popular. And it did seem that if you were in the game last year, if you had a spread or you picked the right ones, you would be extremely rich. And this has got a lot of people to enter into this space and want to come into the space. But there's been, obviously, a lot of change in the markets, and we've got the questions up here, what we want to debate about, because if I just take you to one further thing, this very interesting slide. We looked at the ICOs in February. Now, don't worry about all the figures, but going to a site called ICO Drops, which has all the stats, this is what's happened to most of the ICOs in February once they've hit the exchange, and what their value is now compared to what the people brought the tokens for at the time of the ICO. And you'll see that a lot of them are in the red. Now, this asks the very basic question. If you were the savvy investor, why would you buy at the ICO? Why wouldn't you wait till it hit the exchange, has an initial drop, then buy in and make more money? Now, if that pattern went forward, the wheels would soon come off the wagon and the whole ICO machine might start to break. If we go back to our other questions, there's a lot of questions about whether the market is manipulated, whether it's fair, whether it's a big players market, whether it has a lot of uses, or, pardon me, or whether it's outlived its purpose. So today, I'm going to invite my panel up, and we're going to hopefully get down to the grit of what it's all about. So please, can my panel come up? So I'm very glad to have this panel on. They're very interesting. They represent different opinions across the industry, but they all make their living in a way related to the ICO space. Maybe they don't believe in it, some of them. Maybe some of them have some very harsh criticisms, such as Pavel, and he's spoken a lot about the sphere. But they all have an interest. So obviously, you all understand where Nimrod comes from. They've had a very successful marketing campaign. They've raised a lot of money. We know why he's in this space. Maybe we can start coming down the panel with a brief explanation of who you are and what's your interest in the space. So we'll start with Pavel.
Good afternoon, everybody. So my name is Pavel Kravchenko. I live in Ukraine. I'm a cryptographer. That's my background. So I've been involved in cryptography for 15 years. I was a developer myself, a manager, and in 4 years I'm in blockchain space. So my first job was cryptographer in Stellar. And then many things happened, and the same year, 2014, me together with my partners, we co-founded Distributed Lab. We are focused now on tokenization of assets. And we believe that this is all about infrastructure that can help businesses to improve the efficiency, security, reduce costs, etc. So when tokens are just ways to represent certain assets, like digital deeds, digital rights of ownership. And based on that, we built our approach, infrastructure, and with final goal to build financial internet. I think I will comment on ICO a little later, but that's my intro. Thanks.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Dimitri Chupryna. I'm the managing partner of TAS Fund. My background is mostly in economics. I was involved with crypto spaces about 2014, mostly because I was interested in how those token economies might work, how Bitcoin was aligned with its game theory and stuff. And then I joined the group, and we ended up founding a fund with the goal to contribute to the ecosystem and support interesting projects, interesting ICOs, with the goal to build a infrastructure for tokens and cryptocurrencies.
Hi, I'm Simon Gocking. I'm the editor-in-chief of Irish Tech News and CryptoCoin.News, and I've worked as an advisor with 110 ICOs, so it's a nice panel to be on, and your table is very interesting. It's a big question. Why do some hold value? Why do some go up? Why do some good ones have much less value? And why sometimes does it seem there's not a relationship between the value of the token and the value of the product? So, like you say, it's still quite an immature market. Thanks.
Hello everyone, my name is Ulyana Shtybel. I'm vice president at HighCastle. HighCastle is a blockchain-based investment marketplace, and we are designed to tokenize securities and enable smooth trading of alternative investments. So myself, I am a banker by background. I joined HighCastle from position of executive director, Warsaw Stock Exchange office in Ukraine. And actually, we saw with our team a huge opportunity on these capital markets, and have is big opportunity to upgrade crowdfunding with the use of blockchain technology. And so now from 2016, we're actually doing this big challenge, upgrading crowdfunding and giving opportunity for private securities to be traded.
Okay, now you all know your panel. We're going to get into the... Nimrod, you want to say a couple of words extra to your part?
Just a little bit about myself. I'm mainly wearing the marketeer's hat, but I'm also a very active investor in the Israeli startup scene. One of the companies that I successfully launched is a company called Get, which is like the Uber taxi sharing app operating in Israel, Russia, UK, and the US. Been a venture capitalist for 3 years, and that's it.
Okay, thank you. So now you've got a good idea of who our panel is. Just to look around the room, we'll do just to work out who's here. Who actually is either invested in an ICO or in the next year is thinking about investing in an ICO? So we do have a lot of professional interest in the room. It's good because I think we need to get down to some of the elephant in the room questions that while we're all saying, oh, buy something, hodl it, believe it, just do it. There's a lot more debate because if we're going to put, as people, as investors and other people, put our money in, there's a lot of things you have to consider. Now, my first thing is, Pavel, I was reading up on what you've written. In September last year, you actually wrote that ICOs are a Ponzi scheme. And you went into great detail of what would fail, what was used to manipulate the market. Do you still, is it a broken mechanism? Do you still have that opinion?
I don't say the ICO by itself is a Ponzi scheme, because actually, like, it makes sense to do a token sale if your token is a cryptocurrency. For example, like Zcash did, like they didn't sell, but they have these commissions that they're paying to investors. Or others, like Ethereum, like makes sense because there is no other way to invest in a project that has no company behind, right? But applying this concept to funding any type of business, and I would say, in my opinion, any type of business like use case. So when your ICO has to implement some business logic and integrating there limited amount of tokens and then requiring users to use these tokens in order to like reach the service creates a clear path to like pump and dump, and in some cases to Ponzi scheme. So yeah, I strongly believe in that. I can prove that, and that's like kind of easy. I understand why people do that, because there is no other way to like get money. Because if you cannot sell stocks, if you cannot sell products yet, and you need money to build a thing, then obviously, yeah. So that's the way. And obviously, not everybody is doing a Ponzi scheme. But if you have this type of structure with limited amount of tokens and this business logic, then somebody eventually will do that. I mean, from your team or investors, they will like force you to do that. holding the big amount of tokens and pumping them.
Okay, so maybe it is broken, maybe it's not, maybe part of it's broken. Simon, you have an amazing history. I've lost count of how many ICOs you're actually involved in. So I would say you're a seasoned ICO veteran. Now, is the system broken? Is it going to collapse in on itself? Is it good for more?
Okay, so I guess one big picture way to answer that is from what we can see for the totals, more has been invested in the first quarter of this year than the whole of last year. So overall, is it a broken model? Well, it clearly isn't that broken if more money has already come in this year. Now, obviously, you could say, is that throwing good money after bad? But what we're seeing a lot of in the last month is a lot of people who represent institutional wealth are saying, we've never invested in this area before, we want to move into this area. So before Christmas, and again, so some ICOs have complained that last year, all I needed was a white paper and a video, and I raised 30 million, you know, and they're like lamenting that you can't do that anymore. But that's not actually a bad thing. That's a good thing, because it means that the ability to raise money now is harder, but there's more money out there. So therefore, like Bobby said, with the KYC and the AML, now I advise ICOs to be proactive and to go above and beyond the minimum standards to ensure that you do these things and whitelisting, so that subsequently, if regulations change and get harder, you've future-proofed the money that you raised. So therefore, the ability to get money is harder, but if you're good, you'll get it. So therefore, I don't think it's a broken model, but I'm hoping it's a more broken model for people that are making a get-rich play, and that we're, like, it's very immature last year, you know, so anything, and like with the SEC are looking to do things to protect the investors. So it's not actually necessarily a move against crypto, but it's a move to make it less Wild West. So therefore, without having drunk the Kool-Aid, I do feel that it's not a broken model if you're a smart play, if it should be tokenized, and if you're doing it in the right way.
Okay. One of the criticisms of the model often leveled is that it favors the whale or the bigger early rounds investor, and that it's a rigged game, that they'll come in early, put their money in, get excessive discounts, and they'll make an exit at the price of the common investor. Now, so I'm going to put this over to Dimitri. Dimitri, do you think it's a rigged market?
Well, because we're speaking about ICOs, I think it's important to differentiate between models, because since Mastercoin and since Ethereum models have been changing, and you started speaking about preferences to whales and such, you know, essentially you're speaking about pre-sales, not the actual ICO, and that is also important to differentiate what is a pre-sale and what is an ICO, why do they exist. But I don't see anything fundamentally broken with the ICO model. I do think that giving preference in an open crowd-funded system to some actors might not be the ideal solution, you know, in a very philosophically liberal model of crowdfunding. However, these models do not really differ from the financial system that we have come from. You know, if a fund wants to invest in a project, obviously for a project it might be better to work with the fund and to give them some bonus or some discount or some sort of partnership agreement, because they might drive further value that retail investors will not do. So I don't think it's a rigged model, but I do need to emphasize that there are different models that we will be speaking about today.
Okay. Nimrod, if anyone on the panel would be an expert in how to get the money in the room in, how it's structured, how to play the game, it would be you. So are you like the Pied Piper, or is it a fair game?
First of all, it's a fair game because we're not being forced to do anything we don't want to do. I think that, and also trying to give an answer regarding whether it's a it's a fair play what's going on right now. I think the way to look at it is very simple, and this is the rules that I apply. I think you should look at any investment or any company that's about to embark an ICO as a venture capitalist, and you need to have the right mechanisms in order for each one of us to make the right due diligence of every project that's being launched right now, and it should be very, very granularly observed before we do and before we decide to invest, and all the different aspects should be incorporated into what is the way of the pre-sale and the fact that our early investors, the big whales, are getting big bonuses. What does it say when the token is going to be out there, whether this project is sustainable or not, and most important, obviously, if this is the team that's going to drive its vision into what always we should look for, and that's the long term. I mean, hodling is a nice acronym, but nevertheless, everything that we do here should be taken from the perspective of long term. So just make the right evaluations and don't fall for the Pied Pipers, obviously.
Okay, now that's a very nice line, and I agree with it, because everyone's always shouting, do your own diligence, do your own research. But in a market like this where a lot of people made money, a lot of the money rushing in doesn't either choose to have time or doesn't spend the time. So there's a lot of easy money to attract. So I'll push it over to you, Ulyana. Do you think it is rigged, knowing that a lot of these people are going to rush in, seeing that people have made the money? Having a guy saying, buy Bitcoin, everyone's saying, get rich, hold, it'll come, and everyone wants a piece. So is it a fair structure?
I think it's not a work of retail investor actually to justify in whole if the project is scam or not. So that's why, like in normal capital market, you would have a semi-regulated or regulated markets where you already have projects which are pre-screened, which pass the KYC and AML and like a check for basic information. If this information actually is trustworthy, right? If it's everything that's said on a website is true. So that's why it's so really important to have an intermediary who would give you opportunity to invest and who will do a pre-screening for you. I think ICOs they actually appear as a response on fundraising and liquidity problem which exists on the capital market. But frankly, ICOs is not the best example of blockchain-based investing. What we see on the ICOs market, it's 1,000 of different cryptocurrencies, and majority of them actually would not choose to create this cryptocurrency if they would have another proper way of fundraise on blockchain. To fundraise in easy way, right? So generally this market now it reminds a lot of Forex market, unfortunately, and so this is the one point at least which we can say about those cryptocurrencies trading. But the other thing is, if you have a Forex market, so you definitely could have a market of securities. And that's why, like, thanks to our team, thanks to Distributed Lab and some another investment savvy enthusiasts around the world. So the new model is evolving. So it's STO, security token offering, the new way how you can fundraise on blockchain. And this might be a good solution for those who are seeking to raise money in easy and convenient way. So this year we will see how the market will diversify. We will see cryptocurrencies which will last for some time, or maybe they will grow. Depends how companies will manage to develop their platforms to actually to implement their promises. So it's not necessary all red companies will stay there. Maybe we will see good platforms which they are truly developing, and for this reason, so some cryptocurrencies may grow, but in the same time, we will see a growth of new companies who are doing the security token offering. For investors, for crypto investors, it's actually opportunity to get finally a legal grounds for their investments, to get a portion of ownership in a company, and for traditional fiat investors, it would be a solution to get finally a liquidity for their private securities.
Okay, so we see like maybe a development in the market where somebody would actually get some equity back instead of just purely utility tokens. Nimrod, as somebody with an interest in it, what do you think the main threats are to the ICO, the ICO game, the whole model? What do you think upcoming are the main threats to it?
So obviously the main threats are coming out from the regulators. Each country has its own rules in regarding to how you raise funds, and since it's a wild horse, things are currently shaping up worldwide, and we still don't have visibility on how each of the governors or the governing states will take this crazy horse and what they will do with it. So whatever we think right now might be reshuffled very soon. And the other big risk here is the more companies that will not be able to deliver what they promised to the audience will basically create what would be the very wrong reputation for this industry. So I think we should all be very responsible, knowing that each one of us affects the other one whenever we're going to be doing an ICO.
Okay, so picking up on your thread, that a main threat is basically what we might call vape coins, people that don't deliver. I mean, Vitaly Buterin said he believed 92% wouldn't deliver. Simon, you kind of had an argument with that figure. You wanted to know where he got his logic from. And Pavel, did you not say 99% would fail and only 1% would come through in something last year?
It's not a secret, like approximately 1% of startups succeeds, so it's not about ICO at all. It's just when you, like, if you're a developer, you know this joke that if you have a problem and you want to address this problem using regular expressions, now we have two problems instead of one. So the same with blockchain. So if you try to raise money through ICO, at some point this economy of your token will like fire back, because I don't think any business model needs its own currency. Like it can be done without any own currency. It can use dollar or Bitcoin or etc. So almost every white paper, I think people already thought about that. Why these guys don't use Ethereum in a way to make payments or Bitcoin? And so it just this makes things more complicated. And another aspect is that if you have a lot of money as one chunk, then you cannot really deliver something small. And startups, like current VC space is made in a way that you receive like pre-seed, seed, like Series A, B, C, so you grow steadily, and then on each stage you do like maybe pivot or re-evaluating your goals. And if you have like 30 millions and then you have a goal, it's like very hard to really build something valuable because you already think that you succeeded. So that will increase the fail rate for sure. obviously, like this, maybe people know that Vitalik suggested this DAO ICO, when the startup should get money like in chunks, but people don't want to do that because it's like, oh, you've got the money and now you cannot use it. So there's like incentives are not aligned. So that's my point of view.
So Simon, just picking up on that, 99% from Pavel, 92% from Vitalik. Now, just let me ask you this question. If you're leading all these ICOs, should you be worrying and should you be guilty about what maybe you're leading? Do you think these people are aware that maybe there's only a 1% chance of success?
Yeah, look, I mean, I guess the other one that people don't always anticipate or expect is there are ICOs that have hit even their hard cap and still subsequently don't have a tradable token. So therefore, I would imagine if you laid out everyone that has said we're going to do an ICO and walked through it, it is probably quite Darwinian in terms of the number that are coming through. But I guess the bit that we're trying to work out is why at the moment do positive things that the company have achieved not seem to have an impact on token price, whereas rumor and hype sometimes can, you know, drive things up and drive things down. And so, you know, so we have a bar at the top of the slide that says the prices, and the prices of things are jumping up and down by 5 to 8% every day, you know, and that level of volatility shows that we still don't have maybe a mature way of assessing what is actually doing well and what is today's bubble. And I guess it's partly because when you do the ICO campaign, you have these Telegram groups that expect things in real time. Whereas if you're building a product, you know, it could take 3 to 6 months to go between testing, you know, bugs and everything. But the expectations have been raised, you know, I put a message out on Telegram, no one replied within 5 minutes, it's obviously a scam. So you've got this disconnect between startups still take time. You know, I mean, back in the traditional startup world, it could take 8 years to be an overnight success to suddenly sell your company for 100 million, you know? It doesn't happen that quickly. So we have this strange, on one hand, ICOs are great because it enables the crowd to say whether it's a good idea, whereas before you could have 2 years trying to get loans from banks. Here we can go out and test it, and if it does have validation, you can get funding fast. So you're saying, so is there this big valley of disillusionment? And I guess a lot of what I do with the ICOs is to get them to manage the expectations of the people they're taking investment from. And so there's one I've worked with, ClearPoll. They're great, they've raised their target, they've done everything right, but the token is, you know, and that's good team, good product, they're hitting all their deadlines, it's out on Apple and everywhere. So it shows that we're still, the volatility of price is still distorting the actual value of tokens. I think maybe many people looked to do tokens that shouldn't have been tokens, and therefore that's why we have this large number of casualties, because they raised the money, but was it really necessary to be tokenized? On the other hand, I think what's great is that things move so fast that I think by Q3 and Q4, we can have maybe a more realistic assessment of what will work, and maybe less things will go for tokenization, but they'll be the right ones. So look, I mean, while I kind of half disagree, I think probably maybe it is 10% that are making it at the moment are tradable tokens.
Okay, Ulyana, so do you think the guys are right here? One saying 1%, 10% might succeed. It's a high risk market. People are getting wrong expectations. People are expecting everything to be to the moon all of a sudden. What's your opinion?
I think it's quite a difference between like percentage of successful ICOs and successful startups. It doesn't mean that 99% of successful ICOs will, like 1% of successful ICOs would make 1% of successful startups. So, because from one point of view, you will have like in this 1% companies which done nothing but successful ICO, and you will not see probably a product of such companies soon. You in this 1%, you would also probably would not see those companies who actually done not successful ICO because of lack of marketing, and in the meantime technology or team is quite developed to consider with to continue with development of project. So yes, so it's about 95% who fail, but it's not necessary successful ICOs who will succeed with their product.
Okay, we can move this on also to what actually is a successful ICO, because half the time all the Telegram groups, as Simon was saying, it's about people saying, whoa, look, it's a jump. And some of these people won't last, they won't be there for the good game. We see other coins that come on that have a slick marketing department, that know how to buy into the right exchanges, that put the budgets, that get the crowd to follow them, that jump without developing a product, without having hype. Nimrod, do you think there's a lot of, I wouldn't say fake, but a lot of players that completely understand the market, how to boost the value? Maybe they have product, maybe they don't, but they understand exactly how to play the people, how to play the game, and they get the higher returns and higher investments.
So obviously there are good pay-to-play companies that do exactly that. I've myself been witnessing some of them. I don't want to do any name mentioning, but I did see some very brilliant marketing ICO tricks being pulled on the audience. Even I was almost tempted. I think it was the first, without saying the company's name, it was a cannabis token that obviously got me very excited about. And you know, post ICO, it turned out to be a big, miserable fail. But still, there are not, and this is something that I said, let's be humble. There are not a lot of good marketed ICOs out there in terms of, you know, building a great, I would say, brand and delivering a story. Rather, there are good companies that come with the right combination of power people behind them. Let's take, for example, Cardano. The other token, I don't see a lot of marketing being done by them, and still they're now one of the top 5 tokens out there. And I think these should be the lights in front of everybody in terms of what is a good company and what is not, in my humble opinion.
Okay, Pavel, you actually said that you believed a lot of companies would spend 1 to 5% of their of their budget price in an ICO pumping exchanges and making the coin go up so they could make money at certain times. Do you still believe in that? Do you still think it goes on?
Believe, I just know it. I mean, I just returned from Consensus. People spend so much money on, you know, pumping tokens using a variety of methods. So if you have this ability, right, because nobody prevents you from doing that, there is no regulation. How can you trade your coin? How can you disclose the information? People do whatever they want, and that's funny. Yeah, the big difference from securities market, from regular stock market, is that companies that are traded on the stock market, they are regulated, so you cannot really disclose information in the wrong way, like do insider trading. These rules were built because of many problems appeared before. And with ICO, like in that companies that traded on the stock market, they are already generating like revenue. All of them should generate revenue. And with startups that just have a white paper, obviously they don't, like maybe like only Ethereum technically generates revenue. That's it. And the rest, no. So that's the issue. So companies that are not generating revenue are publicly traded. And just commenting on the security token offerings, that it's not a new thing. It's like in the US, they have this Title III of Jobs Act, which is covering the crowdfunding of companies or equity crowdfunding. So, for example, Indiegogo allows you to crowdfund the equity of your startup. The problem with that is there is no enough liquidity for trading. So the secondary market is like slow. Only for a few stocks, it's a good liquidity. For the rest, it's like very limited amount. And that's why the secondary market is like slow.
Okay, Dimitri, you said to me that you were very much in favor of the ICO structures, saying it was like the new crowdfunding. But crowdfunding is kind of funky and nice, and, you know, Kickstarter and all that. But people throw their money at products that they believe in. Do you really believe that most of the punters, the people investing, actually believe in that or just want to believe? Do you really think they're like, oh, I want to change the world, I want this team? Or do you think they're trying to ride it, trying to make money? And, you know, how do you operate in this space with all those anomalies?
That's a great question. I think to begin answering this question, I really need to discuss why we're talking about ICOs at all. Why is there a panel at the conference, and it's not the only panel in the world, there's many panels about ICOs. And the real simple answer to that is because we are located in the middle of something called a bubble. A bubble is basically a speculative euphoria when once in 10, 20, 30 years people align the idea that something that has been recently discovered, like a technology innovation, is going to change the world, right? And it's going to make everybody happy, everybody rich, and eliminate poverty and hunger. And that's one of the reasons why these ICOs and the promises of technologies that they will deliver is attracting crowds, attracting a lot of people, and obviously their money and savings. And you know, if we go to 1700s, there was something called a joint stock company, the first invention of a joint stock company, and everybody was issuing shares with the promise that they will change the world and do the exact same thing. Nothing changed in 2018 and 17 and 16, except instead of shares, it's tokens now. And to answer your questions, why people are jumping on it, do they really believe in these companies? I think no. I really think that because of this mania, because of this euphoria of the expectations that everybody will get rich, everybody will solve all the problems in the world, everybody is jumping on this train, and just like panelists noticed, 99% of them will fail.
So you said, or let me just get it right, you said you believe we are still in a bubble.
Oh yeah. I think we're still in the bubble. We're in the very beginnings of a bubble, except the promises and the models will change. We will be looking at security tokens, something that was mentioned already. And this is a tiny market at the moment, about 400 billion. I think there's still room to grow to 10 trillion, 20 trillion. And these numbers are, you know, discussable why they are such.
But bubbles often burst. So how do you operate as a professional investor with clients if you believe it might burst? Do you believe that the market might just burst and fall out and like bottom out and go to nothing?
Well,
get out before the rest. Yeah.
Well, pretty much what Pavel said, but you have to understand what kind of markets you're dealing with, and the bubbles come in waves as well. So if you're trying to invest in it, and if you're trying to make some money out of it, basically the first rule that you start with is do not invest more than you can afford to lose, and just play with the rest.
Okay. We're going to go into some open debate with the audience in a short while, but just coming through, Ulyana, what do you believe on a bigger, do you believe that it can be changed, the ICO structure? Because everyone talks about the threat of regulation. Everyone talks about the need for regulation. I mean, it's like everything's not going to work. How can it change for the better?
For investors, it's very important to invest in companies which are sustainable in their revenue generation. And it's good sign for investor. It's when company is generating revenue from business activities, not from a token sale, right? So this is when investors want to see that the company actually didn't fall to this coin trap. So even when companies are doing some ICOs, so they should really moderate how much power they give to their token before it influences their real revenue generation, right? So this is very important for perspective of investors, and in the meantime from perspective of regulators as well, because sustainable companies, they would be sustainable for economic growth in the country. So regulators obviously want to moderate the process, right, to influence how much of those cryptocurrencies appear on the market. I believe that they call it securities just because they don't want to recognize actually cryptocurrencies. Otherwise, it would be called really like a currencies because they behave as a currencies, right? But now it's fall accordingly to SEC, accordingly to other regulators, is fall under the security law, and but it really doesn't mean that all issued tokens should be security tokens. So at HighCastle we offer companies to run STOs, security token offering, which mean really tokenize a portion of their shares or bonds in a company and sell it to investors. And another type of offering, token offering, it's actually reward token offering, because accordingly to UK legislation, as a one type of crowdfunding, you can actually run the reward crowdfunding, right? So we can run it in regulated way, and it's mean you're really doing pre-sale of your services. So either you do a pre-sale of services, either you offering a kind of voucher. Voucher is also opportunity to be for token to be sale in regulated way to customers. So there are definitely like a right regulation to do your token offering. It's just a matter like a company who advising you how to do it. Because, of course, if you will just look to the Bitcoin market, so you may decide to do it in totally unregulated way. Currently, all the regulation is actually on place to make it right. And actually, for investors, it's very important to be under the English law. So from our point of view, it's very important for investors to be on a market where they have actually English law. English law is Singapore, UK, US.
But do you not think there's I mean, your answers are very correct, and I think all the panel would agree with what you're saying. But I'm going to look down the panel, and if it gets more regulated, I mean, who should be regulated for a start? If it becomes less liquid, it's put into walled gardens, is the whole attraction going to disappear? Because at the end of the day, it was the new democracy. Anyone could participate. This is what exploded the market. Simon, what do you think? Do you think it can actually move forward? Is it moving forward, or is it just exploding as more people get excited?
I think if you look at places like Gibraltar and Singapore that would consider to be, you know, leaders, and then they'll do like 2 steps forward and 1 step backward, but they are doing things. I don't think just having more regulation means that you can't just then still have interesting tokens that come along and do well, because a lot of the regulation is to take away, you know, the more dodgy aspects and scams. So, you know, remove that. That still enables a token that has value and suddenly gets traction to potentially ×2, ×5, ×10. So I don't think one will take away the other. And like you say, that you know, crowdfunding, Kickstarter, Indiegogo, it was good for a while, and then people realized that not everything could actually get crowdfunded. And so this is an evolution of that, but I don't think it's suddenly going to stop with regulation. I think it will still be possible, and you will still see some people that have life-changing abilities to either make products, build stuff, or from wise investments. You know, I think we have a global trend to people working more remotely and more gig economy and more gig working. This kind of stuff enables people to have a portfolio that they could also, I know people that now have quit the day jobs to do this kind of stuff, you know, and not just in a bubbly way, but, you know, you can make revenue consistently from this. So I think it's still going to be interesting. I think a little bit of regulation isn't a bad thing, you know.
Okay, I'm not going to be as arrogant as to stop at any point and do a wrap-up, because this is a very intelligent panel and it throws up all the anomalies within the equation. We're not going to solve the issues, tell everyone where to go. But at this moment, we're moving on with time. So we're going to open it up to some questions from the audience to our panel members. Do we have a mic? So, right, if it's very hard to hear from the light, we'll need to do the rule of standing up. So who would like to stand up for the first question? Right, white shirt at the back. Sorry, that's all I can see. We have a mic, please? Okay, here we go. Bear with us.
Hi there. My name is Axel. I'm from Berlin. Thank you so much for really this enlightening panel. It's really amazing. My question is, I'm a serial entrepreneur, so we have a technically driven company. We have a unique live streaming technology, once as a business-to-consumer product and also as a B2B product. We are starting generating revenues now, and it's an IPO, like a stock company based in Berlin. So we think about making a real IPO. It's a bootstrap company so far with approximately 5 million euros. So far, we only spoke to the wrong people. Nobody in Germany or like in Europe was able to understand our technology and was not believing in that a great technology can come from, Germany. So we just think, okay, can we raise money in a different way? And my question is, if you would consider me planning or thinking about an ICO leading to a real IPO, if this is too naive or just this might make sense, because we are on a very good track, we have a huge opportunity right now, and we are starting to generate revenues.
Maybe Nimrod, then Simon.
Well, there are too many question marks that comes to my mind when I'm hearing you, and I don't want to offend in any way, but I think Germany and Berlin specifically is a great growing plate for launching good startups, especially if your technology is that robust or that interesting. I'm sure that you can go to the Axel Springer, for example, a media group. They're looking to do good investments, so you can raise funds either by going to your local venture capitalist or investors, or just go elsewhere and travel to Silicon Valley and try to find your money there, not necessarily doing an ICO that will lead into an IPO. I don't think this is the end goal. I think that you should focus on building a real good product and grow your channels, but most important, if your core technology is that interesting, you'll find money very easily. That's my opinion. So you shouldn't look at it whether should I raise funds from an ICO or not. I mean, you should look at your company, whether it's a sustainable company with great technology, and if that's the case, the road to success is now only relies on you and your team.
Okay, we have some more opinions. First, starting with Simon.
Yeah, look, I mean, diagnostically, if I hear something like that, to me, and I've seen other companies, that you do an ICO for a specific aspect of what you're trying to do. And in that way, what is an ICO? It's crowdfunding. What is crowdfunding? It's a proof of concept. It's like Oculus Rift. They raised whatever it was, $1 billion first through crowdfunding to realize that there was the interest to do bigger things. So in that way, I would see ICO as something to just float an idea out there and see if there's traction. It doesn't mean all the other stuff will happen, but it will show you if people are biting your hand off to do this or if they're not interested.
I would just say that if you're considering doing an ICO, you should also consider that you're essentially trying to change your business model by introducing a token within your company. And that can be very dangerous because you're shifting dynamics of how your business model might work. Because a token right now is an instrument to crowdfund. However, it also must have some utility, right? And most startups that have done an ICO, they have done something called a utility token, which is essentially a payment token, a token that lives within the company and essentially competes with the likes of Bitcoin and Ethereum and Monero and other coins, which is not very wise. And if you were trying to crowdfund and if you're trying to have a token, what I would do is I would wait until security tokens come along, which I think is a year or 2 years from now. And essentially, you're not introducing a token within your business model, you're selling your equity, an equity that is liquid for your investors.
I just may agree with Dimitri in a way that you should be really careful about how the coin may broke your revenue generation. And once you will not be able to pass the audit, so it will be impossible for you actually to enter the IPO market, right? So for companies who are actually planning the IPOs, it would be better to do STO, security token offering, in proper way, prove your business model, your revenue generation, like fundraise from crypto and fiat investors, and then obviously you will be eligible for audit and for IPO.
Pavel, did you have anything to add? Because I saw you looking up.
It's possible to raise money in traditional way. Just a quick example. A week ago, we raised, we won an award from this t-shirt from Silicon Valley Fund, up to $1 million of investment in one of our companies. And the CEO is in Berlin, lives in Berlin. It's 2 Georgian guys and a bunch of Ukrainians. That's the team. So definitely, if you're German, that's not the worst case in the world. It just VCs are asking tough questions, obviously. Why this team? Why this strategy? How are you going to do acquisition, profit generation? And you have to answer that. So, but definitely there are a bunch of VCs that are ready to invest. And I think I'm not always negative. The positive point is that competing, governments will to some extent compete with ICO, and they will reduce amount of regulations or at least automate them. So KYC, IML, all these things and registrations, etc. They will be easier. So if they will be fully transparent, then you don't need to spend that much money. And actually right now making an IPO is cheaper than ICO. Probably will get lower valuation, but anyway it's cheaper.
Okay, I will take another question. So if somebody would like to stand up if you have a question so we can see you. Right, our friend here with the pink shirt, I believe.
Hi, my name is Dima. I'm from Ukraine. So my question is, what are your thoughts about the recent ban of all advertisements on the biggest media channels about all cryptocurrency and ICOs, etc., etc.? What do you think about it?
A quick one is, for the rest of us in the media business, it's great. Also, I think they're doing it because they're going to launch their own cryptocurrencies down the line. So therefore, short term, if you're in the media business, ICOs need to advertise. If they can't advertise there, they still want to get the story out. So we're seeing more traffic, we're seeing more business, and down the road, I'm sure, why wouldn't there be a Google coin and a Facebook coin and a Twitter coin?
Okay, so in this slide, don't you think the kind of, how to say, one moment, other media platforms shall be established that shall basically bring all those who are seeking for the ICOs and for those who are seeking for the founders, who basically, and the question is, what's the main action items from your experience as an investor, mainly when I see the ICO, 3 action items, what should I check to discern if this is a scam or if this is really something that I need to be like to check its depth deeper and to understand if I really want to be invested in. So like something like the most prominent one, which is like inexperienced investor can just miss.
I think the most important thing that you should always check, and that's the team behind the ICO. It's the single most important thing. Dive into their history, their LinkedIn, try to get references about them. Make sure that, you know, they are the kind of team that can deliver. Since numbers were mentioned, only about 5% will succeed eventually. So you need to make sure that the one that you put your money on are among these 5% that has a high chance on succeeding. That's my opinion, at least.
So it means the team, it's number one to check to...
Number one, everything is personal in life.
Thank you.
Okay, as usual, we'd say it's do your own diligence, do your own digging. Now, we're pushed for time. We'll come out to a break. I want to really thank my panel, who have been absolutely excellent. They've given great content. They've opened my eyes up a little bit. So they will be around. If you want to ask some questions, feel free to grab hold of them, have a chat with them. And thank you very much for your time.